Hello, everyone. We are here from Hive Wellness Studio to talk today about birth sensations. And we know that everyone wants to have a positive birth. And yet, as the people supporting people who are birthing, we often hear a lot of stories about people's trauma or struggle or challenge or being blindsided by this experience. And what it comes down to is often is that they didn't have the right support or any support at all around what birth was going to be like. Childbirth education classes are great, but sometimes we miss some of these pieces in the we get to the birth room and it's like, oh my God, it's challenging. And it's challenging to know even where to start or what kind of support you might want or need. And this can make birthing people feel overwhelmed. And we think that that's wrong. We want you to be educated and prepared for what's going to happen. I'm Kayla, and I am a social worker and perinatal mental health specialist. I am the owner and CEO of Hive Wellness Studio, and we are here joined today with Jana to talk specifically about the sensations that you're going to have in your birth and why it's important to prepare for it.
And I'm Jana. I am a prenatal massage therapist and postpartum massage therapist. And I'm also a childbirth educator. I have spent my career focusing on prenatal support, both through the physical body, but also the mind as well. And I'm excited to talk about birth sensations and what we can do to help get everybody the support that they need and deserve for their births. So Kayla's talked a lot about what birth can be like. And I just want everyone to know that it doesn't have to be that way. And there's lots of things that you guys can do and I can help you do to have this incredible birth that you want and deserve. I've helped dozens of families over the last 8 or so years of my career. And I feel really passionate about helping families achieve the birth that they want, that's right for them, and not what's right for me. Um, so the main way that I have helped families is through my classes that I teach. So I have a couple of different classes that I'm teaching. Hypnobirthing is the main one, and that focuses a lot on your mindset and what you can do to achieve a positive mindset around your pregnancy and around your birth, as well as comfort measures. So, thinking about our body positioning during pregnancy and during labor and during birth, and why that's so important and how it's going to impact the way that your body is able to birth your baby.
Awesome. And Jana, what are some of the reasons we need to be doing this kind of preparation? We hear a lot from clients, that they just weren't prepared for it. Like nobody, or the classic "nobody told me" statements, right? And so, what are the reasons we need to be preparing in these ways?
Well, I don't want anyone to get into a situation where they are feeling overwhelmed or that they're feeling like they were blindsided by things that were happening. So, being able to educate yourself in a way of what your options even are. A lot of people go through birth and say, I didn't even know that I had a choice. I didn't even know that I could say no to that, or that I could choose a different rate, regardless of what type of birth you're going to have, and regardless of what options are available in whatever area you're living in. There are always options and there are always things that you can choose for yourself. So that's just at the very basic, is knowing what your options are and then setting that time aside to be able to say, okay, I think this is the path that I want to go down, and these are the supports that I need to put into place. So just giving yourself that information so that you even know where to start and what your options really are going to be. um, I feel like when people decide, sometimes I'll hear first time families especially tell me, well, I've never been through it before, so I don't know what it's going to feel like. So I'm just going to wing it and we'll see what it is. And that's fine. That is a fine attitude to have. The biggest issue with that on the other side of things, when I hear them, their birth stories coming back, is that they didn't know X, Y, and Z. They didn't know that this could possibly be something that could happen to them. And so by shutting everything out and deciding to go that like I'm just going to jump on the conveyor belt. My doctor's going to tell me what I need to do, and I'm just going to do that. Oftentimes there are moments of overwhelm. There are moments of feeling like that you weren't part of your own birth process. You weren't told things. You weren't asked your opinion. And I don't want anybody to come out of their birth with a traumatic birth experience in that way, where they felt like they were completely blindsided or that they didn't have options that they could have had they have had the knowledge to be able to make those decisions for themselves. Oh, I have a little friend that's come to visit.
What is at stake when you don't prepare?
Yeah, honestly, a truly traumatic birth experience, or at the very least, a birth that you didn't deserve, a birth where you felt that you weren't heard, um, a time where it should have been a happy moment and you just felt deflated or defeated. And I don't ever want anybody walking away from their birth feeling that way. And that is regardless of whatever type of birth you choose to have. I think a lot of people assume that the only way to have a positive birth is to have, a home birth or to have an unintervened birth. And that is not the point at all of a positive birth. A positive birth is making decisions for yourself and making yourself a part of the whole birth process and not being steamrolled or pushed or encouraged into a path that doesn't feel right to you. So just having um, that traumatic birth experience can be as simple as not having your voice heard or not feeling like you were a part of the process. And that's a lot of what I hear for people that are unhappy with their birth experience.
Absolutely. And what's to gain, when people prepare in the right ways, or take more of that prevention informed, empowered mindset to it?
Oh, so much. Even just starting just from pregnancy, being able to be excited about your upcoming birth instead of scared out of your mind. Being able to have the type of birth where you potentially have that euphoric moment when your baby is born that people talk about, and having that moment of like, oh my God, I did it. Like I did it. And you just don't ever have that feeling, I don't think, from any other time in life. And I don't want anybody to be robbed from that moment unnecessarily. Also, recovery time, being able to physically recover and mentally recover from your birth in a very much more easy and quicker fashion. I do think that it lowers our postpartum depression rate as well if you're not already having to unpack a traumatic birth experience. If you're able to just move forward in this new stage of life with your new baby, I feel like it also aids in the physical and emotional bonding with your baby. Again, if you don't have to unpack and go through, dealing with any particular traumatic experiences that you had during the birth. So there's so many positives to preparing yourself correctly for the type of birth that you want, for sure.
And so, what are some of the birth sensations you do want people to know about so that we can sidestep that, like being blindsided or only ever having heard people's traumatic birth stories heading into your own birth?
Absolutely. So I think somewhere along the line, having a positive birth or having a calm birth has somehow morphed into this idea that it's going to be pain free and it's going to be easy. That is nonsensical. Birth is probably the most intense experience of your life. There is no other way to really describe it. I don't use the word pain when I talk about birth only because it's such a relative term. For some people, it may feel more like pressure. It may feel more like stretching. It may feel more like tightening. It might not feel like pain to them. So I don't want to pigeonhole anybody into a particular sensation, but pretty much everybody will experience the intensity of birth because you're bringing a baby into the world one way or another. It's an intense experience and it's hard work. Labor is hard work and it is so worth the work that you put into it, regardless, again, of the type of birth that you have. your body is working hard and you need to be there to support your body and bring your baby out into the world. So I would say the number one sensation would have to be intensity. It is a very intense experience. And there's lots of things that you can do to work with that intensity to keep the momentum going. And there's lots of things that people don't realize that they're doing during those intense moments in birth that are actually working against their body, and it makes it much more uncomfortable and much more intense than it needs to be.
Can you speak to some of those?
Absolutely. So positioning is a huge part of labor and birth, and listening to your body, that intuition of like, I don't know why, but I just needed to get onto all fours. Or I needed to be on my hands and knees. Or for some reason, moving my hips felt so good during labor, especially as it got more intense. That's an intuition in our bodies. Our bodies know as the baby moves down through the pelvic bones, it actually needs that movement. So anytime that you're sitting or lying down, what's happening is that you're actually anchoring the bones of your pelvis to the bed or the ball or the chair or whatever it is that you're sitting in, even the tub. And it can create much more intensity during that time when your hips actually need to be moving. Being in the water, for example, can create lovely counter pressure for your hips during those sensations as well, and can feel just wonderful during that. So there's a few little tips and tricks to helping with that intense feeling and being able to work with your body as opposed to just lying in the bed and feeling this overwhelming intensity and feeling like you can't bear it any longer. Being upright is probably a much more comfortable position to be in. Even though it's still intense, it's likely going to be more comfortable for you to be upright.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think those are really great pieces of information. And I just want to add in a little personal note that when it comes to what we talk about in terms of interventions, a lot of my clients who I see prenatally will be very concerned that they have to have an induction, and that the induction will mean this like cascading of events that will require more intervention. And for anyone listening who maybe wants to counter that myth, I had two induction births, two different ways. And that intensity, again, pain is relative. There was no other interventions that needed to happen in both of my births. And being upright helped immensely in that, because yeah, following those urges were really, really important. And I want to add one more thing, just that having a really great support team, I think, helps make those decisions. Help.
Absolutely. Being reminded throughout, even though we can cognitively know when we're pregnant, when we're the ones going through the intense experience, sometimes we don't cognitively think when we're in those moments. So being able to have our support team that's on our team, whether that's a sister or a doula or a friend, or mom that's with you, along with a partner that can say like, why don't we try this or why don't we try that? And you aren't going to be able to necessarily cognitively think. So I think support is a really important thing. And I just wanted to say one other thing about induction. It's funny, in this world, I feel like we've sort of given this big blanket term, induction. And what does that actually mean? Induction can be anything from pressure points on your heels, anything that is going to encourage the baby to come along can be deemed as an induction. So it's become this really scary term, but there's lots of gray area under the title induction, and it doesn't necessarily need to be something to be afraid of, but it's certainly something to be aware of
Yeah.
and knowledgeable about, and the reason for the induction in the first place, especially when we're talking chemical induction. So yeah, I think I could do a whole video just on induction, and also birth sensations. I just wanted to say something that you had said reminded me of this, is when we are numbing ourselves to the sensations of birth instead of working with the sensations of birth, sometimes that in itself can cause complications. A lot of times the sensations we're feeling are messages that our body is giving to us. If things are extremely uncomfortable, usually there's a reason that our body is telling us that things are really uncomfortable. We probably need to be moving into a different position that's completely simplifying the entire
Of
thing. But the
course.
sensation, the bottom line is that the sensations that our body is giving us during birth are purposeful,
Yeah.
and are something that certainly we can work through and listen to that sort of intuition.
Yeah. Same with feelings, right? Our feelings show up for a reason. And so I think you're right on target with that. Because I think our bodies tell us things, and in our modern capitalist society, we numb or avoid a lot of things. And so I agree with you, and totally simplifying it in in the moment, it feels like your body is expanding beyond capacity,
Yeah.
and it can yeah, we're oversimplifying it, but for sure, what it comes down to in terms of the theme, I think, to summarize everything, is to make sure that you feel like you have choice, and that you are
Yeah.
informed and empowered in those decisions, and that people are giving you time to
Yeah.
make those decisions. And in every other case other than a real emergency.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm
And then
curious, Jana. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, the more education that you can do during your pregnancy, the more time it gives you to be able to explore your options and really talk it through with your partner, talk it through with your care team, and decide what is right for you. What path do you think you want to try? And maybe you don't know, but it certainly gives you more options. It gives you more of a voice when it comes down to making those decisions, like whether or not you want to accept an induction at the end of your pregnancy, for one reason or another. It gives you that voice and that time to really think it through. So I think that that's really important too.
For
I
sure.
actually want to share a little story. I had a family come to see me for support. They had had a relatively traumatic birth experience with their first, knew that they didn't want to do that again with their second, but was very skeptical about hypnobirthing, sort of in the like, I'm not really sure this is for me, but I really don't want to do that again. I don't want that kind of birth. I said, okay, well, let's just give it a go. And I could see that throughout the 5 weeks of the course, there were things that were resonating with her in particular, for sure. Things that they were like, wow, we had a whole baby and we didn't even know half of this stuff. Like, how did we even have a baby without knowing this stuff? So that was really cool. It was very more logical for them. And so when they were preparing at the very end of their pregnancy for the birth, they were like, okay, yeah, I think this is going to be good. Like, I think we're going to be able to do this and everything. And afterwards, they got back to me and let me know that they ended up actually having an accidental birth at home, in their kitchen, because the sensations were so different and she was so much more relaxed and everything felt so much gentler and relaxed, as opposed to the like hyped up type of birth that she had with her first one. She just sort of almost ignored the sensations that she was feeling because they didn't feel strong enough to really tune into. And the next thing she knew, her baby was coming, and there wasn't time to get to the hospital, although that was their plan. So they called EMS and had their second baby in their kitchen, born into her partner's hands. And she said the craziest thing was having this moment, just the three of them, even though this wasn't their plan. And she never, in her wildest dreams, imagined that this would be what her birth story would be. The gift of having that moment of just the three of them while they were waiting for EMS to get there was so magical. And she said, it made her look at her partner in a different way. It made her look at herself in a different way. It bonded her and her husband to their baby in a different way that their first birth wasn't able to do. And she just said, I didn't even know this was possible. I didn't even know this is what I would have wanted. And I don't think I could have articulated that this is what I would have wanted. But having gone through such a different birth experience was life changing for her, for sure. And I think life changing for her postpartum experience. So sometimes birth surprises us in that way and gives us things that we didn't even know we needed. Um, and that's what I want for everybody. I want everybody to be able to have these magical birth experiences that are out there. And that's not to say that it won't be intense. It's not to say that it's not going to
Right.
be hard work. But I want it to be a life changing, in the best possible way, story for you and for your partner and for your baby. And really set yourself up for that postpartum phase in a really positive way. So,
That's amazing. I love that
yeah.
story. Um,
Mhm.
what, how do people go about getting this kind of education and this kind of experience?
Well, I'm happy you asked, Kayla. I happen to be offering some classes. So my next class is going to be starting on August 31st. Hypnobirthing runs for 5 weeks, and I'll be offering another class in November. I typically offer them 4 times a year. The classes do tend to fill up, so the earlier you can register, the better. Ideally, the best time to register for the class is sometime in that second trimester. Around 20 weeks is perfect. It gives you plenty of time to physically, you're still very comfortable to sit in a class for 5 weeks in a row. It gives you plenty of time to practice all of the things and decide what kind of birth you think you might want. It also gives you the benefit of being able to have a longer period of positive thinking throughout your pregnancy instead of waiting until the very end. The other class I'm offering now is just a comfort measures class. I shouldn't say just, but it focuses, it's a one off, it's a workshop, it's 3 hours. You're going to come and you're going to learn with your partner all of the different comfort measures that you can be taking with you to your birth. So being able to move through those different positions. We're going to talk a little bit about mindset. We're going to talk a little bit about breathing. And it just gives you a little nugget of information to take with you so that you don't feel like you have no idea what to do to support your physical and your mental well-being during your birth. And that course is going to be, oh shoot, I forget the date off the top of my head, mid-September. It's a Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I want to say like the 18th. We'll post a link.
Yeah.
And that will be my first time offering this class. So first class offering for that one, and I'm excited to get that one started. So
Awesome. And for anyone watching this class later than these dates, we will just drop the generic link on how to get in touch with Jana below. And we will see you next time in our next video that we are planning. We haven't, the topic is totally escaping me now, but we're going to be doing 3 or 4 of these kind of videos for you so that you can prepare in the best way possible going from pregnancy to postpartum. So thank you for watching and being here with us, and we will see you again next time.